I do not wish them women to have power over men, but over themselves. It is vain to expect virtue from women till they are in some degree independent of men. Strengthen the female mind by enlarging it, and there will be an end to blind obedience. The divine right of husbands, like the divine right of kings, may, it is hoped in this enlightened age, be contested without danger. Taught from infancy that beauty is woman's scepter, the mind shapes itself to the body, and roaming round its gilt cage only seeks to adorn its prison. Women ought to have representatives, instead of being arbitrarily governed without any direct share allowed them in the deliberations of government. Make women rational creatures and free citizens, and they will quickly become good wives. That is, if men do not neglect the duties of husbands and fathers. Women are systematically degraded by receiving the trivial attentions which men think it manly to pay to their sex, when, in fact, men are insultingly supporting their own superiority. My own sex, I hope, will excuse me if I treat them like rational creatures, instead of flattering their fascinating graces and viewing them as if they were in a state of perpetual childhood, unable to stand alone. It is time to effect a revolution in female manners, time to restore to them their lost dignity, and make them, as a part of the human species, labor by reforming themselves to reform the world. It is time to separate unchangeable morals from local manners. Errors are often useful, but it is commonly to remedy other errors. Every political good carried to the extreme must be productive of evil. All the sacred rights of humanity are violated by insisting on blind obedience. Solitude and reflection are necessary to give to wishes the force of passions. No man chooses evil because it is evil. He only mistakes it for happiness, the good he seeks. Children, I grant, should be innocent, but when the epithet is applied to men or women, it is but a civil term for weakness. They may be convenient slaves, but slavery will have its constant effect, degrading the master and the abject dependent. The being who patiently endures injustice and silently bears insults will soon become unjust, or unable to discern right from wrong. From the respect paid to property flow, as from a poisoned fountain, most of the evils and vices which render this world such a dreary scene to the contemplative mind. And having no fear of the devil before my eyes, I venture to call this a suggestion of reason, instead of resting my weakness on the broad shoulders of the first seducer of my frail sex. Virtue can only flourish among equals. It is justice, not charity, that is wanting in the world. But what a weak barrier is truth when it stands in the way of a hypothesis. Simplicity and sincerity generally go hand in hand, as both proceed from a love of truth. Those who are bold enough to advance before the age they live in must learn to brave censure. Only that education deserves emphatically to be termed cultivation of the mind, which teaches young people how to begin to think. It appears necessary to go back to first principles in search of the most simple truths, and to dispute with some prevailing prejudice every inch of ground. Let their faculties have room to unfold, and their virtues to gain strength, and then determine where the whole sex must stand in the intellectual scale. True sensibility, the sensibility which is the auxiliary of virtue and the soul of genius, is in society so occupied with the feelings of others as scarcely to regard its own sensations. Independence I have long considered as the grand blessing of life, the basis of every virtue, and independence I will ever secure by contracting my wants, though I were to live on a barren heath. The beginning is always today. A little patience and all will be over. The mind will ever be unstable that has only prejudices to rest on. Only by the jostlings of equality can we form a just opinion of ourselves. I earnestly wish to point out in what true dignity and human happiness consists. Surely something resides in this heart that is not perishable, and life is more than a dream. Like the flowers that are planted in too rich a soil, strength and usefulness are sacrificed to beauty. My dreams were all my own. I accounted for them to nobody. They were my refuge when annoyed, my dearest pleasure when free.